Welcome to the Quick Start Guide to generating 3D models using the MPX Python SDK. I'm at the masterpiecex.com website and we want to build with the API. And if you don't have an API login and you want to sign up, I have one, so I'll just log in. And once you're logged in, we can jump right to the API docs. And we're going to dive into our guides section and we're going to get started. So we've already visited the developer portal and we need to create and get an API key. You can create that key on the same portal, but let's take a shortcut and dive right to the API reference section of this document. And you'll notice that your API key has been automatically transferred here. So you can copy that right out and save that somewhere safe. Don't share it with anybody. It's a secret key. If you want to generate another API key, you can click Get API Keys here. It brings you back to the Masterpiece API backend, and you can create a new app, and that new app will let you generate a new key. So let me just create one right now. And you see we created a new app and I could copy that key, but seeing as we already have the key, let's not worry about it. We'll go back to our docs, go to our guides. So we've set up an account, we've copied our API key, and now we need to install our SDK. So to do that, let's set up our project. So on my Finder here, I'm just going to create a new folder, call it Getting Started. And I'm going to go to Visual Studio Code. I'm going to open that folder. And we are here. And once we're here, before we do anything, let's set up our Python environment and install a few packages, including the SDK. Create a new terminal, and I'll create an environment or a virtual environment. You may have your own method. You might use Conda, or you might have your own approach. I'm using virtual environments that Python provides. Now I'm going to activate the environment. And now we will install the MPX Python SDK. Let's go back to our documentation. Here's the pip install. Now our SDK has been installed. We're going to clear the console just so it's easier to read. I'll raise that up a little bit so it's a little easier to read. And we will begin with the quick start to generating 3D models. Now, the prerequisites are that we set up an account, we have an API key, we installed the SDK, and you get free credits when you log in, so you'll have sufficient number of credits. There are two other packages that this process uses. One's called Pillow and one's called Requests. Let's install those. So pip install Pillow. This is so we can work with images, and we're going to pip install Requests. It's a third-party library that helps with HTTPS requests. So both of those have been installed. And the final thing we want to do is we want to make sure that our API key is in the environment variable for this Python project. So this is different for PC and Mac. I'm going to show you the Mac version, which also is compatible with Linux and Unix. So what we want to do is we want to use the export command. So export MPX SDK bearer underscore token, and then between quotes, we put our API key. Now that's been done. I'm going to clear that. And now we're going to start exploring that script. So here we are in generating a quick start to generating 3D models. This is worth a read And I'm not going to read through it. You can do that on your own if you like. What I'm doing is the final part of this documentation is the script itself. I'm going to copy the whole script and we're going to walk through that together. But remember, it's good to read this page if you want to get into more details. So I'm going to create a Python file in my Getting Started folder. I'm going to call it main.py. You can call it whatever you want. I'm going to save that. And I'm going to run the script and walk you through it. But before we run the script, what the script does is it takes a text prompt, it turns it into 4 images. One of those images is turned into a mesh. So let's run the script. And while it's running, I will break down how the script's laid out. So obviously we have the imports at the front here. This allows us to work with the operating system to save some files, because in this example, we do save the images and the mesh to your hard drive. Times used for the API polling, just to see, and check the status of things. Request helps with the HTTP requests. Byte.io works with memory and binary. It's what we're using for a lot of the image work. And this pill import also allows you to work with images. Finally, we are pulling in all the aspects of the GenAI SDK that we need for this script. It has 2 major functions. It's a retrieve request status. This is polling to make sure that the images that are generating and the mesh that are generating is ready. It's checking on status of that. And then the run text to image model. This whole script will actually do the text to image to 3D process. And finally, there are two lines at the end that are kick off the whole script. The first is it instantiates a client, which is an instance of that you use to call our components and functions in the API, and we're assigning it to client, and then you pass that client instance to the run text to image to model function up here, and it kicks the whole thing off. Before I walk through each chunk of code, let's take a look what just happened. We generated a cute cartoon brown dog with a big head, candid, full body, single side, single camera angle, the whole bit. Those are 4 examples. So here's 1, 2, 3, and 4 images that were generated. We took results _0 and we turned it into a GLB mesh here. And let me take and show you what that looks like. So here you can see, here's the GLB mesh that we just generated. And it was of this image, which is result 0. So now that you know how the script works, so we've run it successfully, let's walk through what it's doing. So let's scroll down here, and remember, these are the 2 lines that kick off the whole thing. Here we instantiate the client, which allows us to access all our components and functions of our API. We pass that to the run text to image model function. And here we are. And the first thing that happens is we are doing a text to image component call, and we're passing it the prompt, the number of images, the number of steps, which is a maximum of 4, and the LoRa. We have 3 LoRas that we support. And this is, fine-tuned images related to game models. Now we get a response back, which is it returns something called a generate response object that contains the balance and a request ID and the status. So once we call the text to image component, we need to wait for it to be complete. And what we do first of all is we print out the text to image request variable, and it shows what the generate response object has in it. And you can see the status is pending, and it has a request ID, which is very important. That's how we know how to refer to this particular text to image call. And then we have a balance, how many tokens I have left and API credits I have left. Now we want to actually poll by sending the request ID to the function retrieve request status. And what that is that's this function here. And we pass it the client and the request ID. And what happens is it prints out the status. You know, this is the first time it enters, it prints it out. And you can see here, there's another status. The status is a status response object. And it explains that there's been no outputs, there's no URLs. This is the first time it's done this, so it's not even processed any time yet. And this is the ID it's working on, and it's pending. And then what happens is we wait until the object has been generated to status complete. So as soon as this pending becomes complete, we know this process is done. We look for the response status that it's not complete or failed, and we check every 10 seconds. And then eventually it is completed, and it drops down here. It gives us the final status, gives us the response, and you can see the final status here. Now it has outputs. There's no FBXs or GLBs, but it has zip files and images because we were doing that. That's the process that we were checking in on. We were checking on the image generation. So as you can see, we have status complete over here, and we have 4 image URLs. Now what we do next is we have the image URLs. In this example, we want to save the files to disk. So what this is doing is it's looking at the list of image URLs. It's figuring out that there are 4 URLs in the list. And then it's actually going through each URL and it's saving it to the folder here. And you see there's right here they are. And now we want to take this results _ 0 PNG, and we're going to send that into the API to generate a mesh. But to do that, we actually need to create a asset URL and an asset ID or a request ID to do that. And as you can see here, this just saves a spot in our backend's memory, our API server's memory, to receive an image. And in this case, the description can be any description you want. It probably should be described as result 0 cute dog or something like that. The name of it is the name that the backend server is going to use to refer to it. And the type is an image ping. And by creating this, what you've done is you've reserved a spot for the image to be uploaded to. And you can see here, the asset response is, this is it, meaning we're ready to go, giving you the URL, it's giving you the request ID, okay? And that's just printing them out just to show you what's going on in the script. Now, before we upload the results _ 0 to the API, we need to create a header for it. This is particularly when you're dealing with images on your hard drive. If you were using the image URLs to pass between different functions of our API, you don't have to do this kind of stuff. So we create a header and we pass we open the results 0, and this is how we know we're sending this one up there. And we're opening it up as a binary file. And we're reading the file, and then we're taking that image data that we've read, and we are passing the image data, the header, so it knows that we're, sending a content of an image, and we're making sure we're passing our API key, and that asset URL, which is that spot where we're reserving to receive this file. And once we've done that, this process is uploading the image, and then we print out the responses to see, did the upload work? And yep, it worked here. Now what we want to do is we want to do an image to 3D request. So what that is, we're actually doing we're calling a function called image to 3D, and we're passing the results of that to a variable called image 3D request, okay? And that image 3D request is also a generate response object, meaning we're generating something and we're going to get a response from it. And this time we're passing the asset response ID. Now that's that ID that's associated with the results _ 0 ping. We're giving it a seed and we're giving it a texture size. Texture sizes should be multiples of 2, and the maximum texture size is 2048. Then what we want to do is we want to poll it just like we did before, which is the retrieve request status poll. We pass it the client, the request ID, and it gives us a status response object. When it's all said and done and the status is complete, you get the final status, which is right here. And you can see its status complete. And this provides us the URL to the GLB file. Here what we do is we actually take the response and we get the URL from that response, and then we tell it what we're naming it. So this is what we're going to call it on our hard drive. And then I take that URL and we actually dive deeper and we can pull the content, which is the image data or the GLB data, from the URL, and we write it to file, and that's what writes this. Now, like I said, you don't have to write to your hard drive. You can use the URLs themselves. But for this example, we wanted to show it to you on our hard drive because it's easier to see. And here we are at the end of the script. So I hope this gets you up to speed so you can start creating your own apps using the Python MPX API.